European gas prices surge as Russia announces it'll be shutting down the Gazprom pipeline again to do maintenance. But worries spark that this may be a more permanent thing, so we'll be talking about that, what that means, especially coming into months that get colder. In other news, the title story of this episode, The Science, has retired Dr. Fauci to step down after more than 50 years in government. The timing? Well, I guess we'll have to talk about that and what that means, but yes, the announcement is made. So we'll be talking just a bit about that. In other news, Judge Reinhardt has formally rejected the DOJ's argument to keep the Trump affidavit sealed, so I got this feeling this is about to get really interesting in a hurry, but we'll talk just a bit about that and what that means. And Dennis Rodman says that he feels the need to go over and talk to the Russians about Brittany Griner. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the main channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. A lighter show than we usually have, but we also got through everything yesterday, so we're starting fresh with no leftovers here, and we'll see if we can't get through everything again today. I mean, it's not a big stack. We've got some a little bit of extended financial news just because the gas, I think, fell into that, especially given the fact that that is going to affect global markets as well. And by the way, it's getting colder. We're not there yet for the fact that we need heat in Wisconsin, but it's definitely now become something that we've thought about, at least. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Saint Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine, and the fact that we will no longer have a patron saint of medicine. So we'll talk about that. We've got a few things to talk about. I guess Ford is cutting 3,000 more jobs, but don't worry, most impressive job market in history right here. But we'll talk about that. A lot of stuff to talk about here. So we'll get right to it over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out the great programming that I love to endorse in the morning. All the great people who are out there giving us news culture by the common man for the common man, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys, KTZed, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior. Go check out all of those. Make sure you guys are checking out and hanging out with these people as we come together to try to get you music, society, culture, video games, and of course news by the common man for the common man. So let's get started and let's get into my news by the common man for the common man. And we are going to start today with finance for the day. Oops. I'm not on finance though. I was on the news. All right, let's do this. Starting with the Dow. The Dow is down almost 2% throughout the day yesterday. It took a sheer drop right in the beginning of the day and then just kind of slowly coasted its way still back down It tried to come back a little bit at the end of the day, but just there wasn't enough time, and there wasn't enough to come back and do things. Now, it does look like, according to most everything, the futures are looking up, but, after dumping 643 points throughout the day, there really wasn't any place to go but up right now, but we'll see what's happening with that, and where that goes, and what we do with this sell-off after it's all done. Looking in at the Bitcoin is at 21,434.20 on the day. That is up $36, so barely a move upwards off the day, but it also crashed right around 5 o'clock a.m. Central Time, and then brought itself back up even stronger than it was before that little bit of a crash, bringing out the 5-day, and all we see looking out through yesterday is just the sort of dribble bounce continuing off of the massive dump all the way back on Friday. So we will continue to watch this, see where this goes. I know that some of the audience people here don't care for the Bitcoin, but as I've said, it's one of the most liquid hard assets out there, which means if you have it, you're using it as a retirement, you can cash it back out for cash, for gas, diapers, or food faster than you can get money out of your gold or your stocks. So it's always interesting to watch, because typically if somebody's got to go get money right now, that's the asset they go for. It's usually crypto, gold, and then stocks. But we will watch this, see where this goes, and what happens with this. Looking at gas. I'm not sure what to make of this gas map. Now, a lot of this is not in Madison proper either. They're stretching out to Lodi to get some of these very, very low prices right now. In fact, everything that's below 340 is out in Lodi, but even in Sun Prairie, we have one, the Woodman's in Sun Prairie, that is showing 340. So I don't know if we're about to get a reprieve. It does look like the gas prices are looking up, the oil prices are looking up right now. So possibly within the next few weeks, we could start to see another big jump up. But we see a 328 in Lodi, far outside of the Madison area. I believe Lodi is actually in Columbia County, not Dane County. It's on the line, I know that, but I believe that is out of Dane County. It's still Madison area, but it's barely Madison area. So possibly some reprieve. I mean, we're not seeing a 350 yet, but we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with that. Looking at IBD for the morning. Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures, what to do after stock market plunge. Powell's speech ahead from Scott Latonin. Futures were higher on Mondays after Monday's stock market plunge ahead of the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's speech from Jackson Hole on Friday. I still can't believe that they make such a big deal about the chief jackhole in the government, Jerome Powell, giving a speech from Jackhole. And I really don't understand why Wyoming is such a big deal for the Federal Reserve. We were talking about this last year too. Palo Alto and Zoom Video were key earnings movers after the close on Monday. Palo Alto shares jumped more than 7% on better than expected results, while Zoom stock dove more than 7% in extended trade after cutting its earnings and sales outlook on the year. On Monday, the Dow Industrial declined 1.9%, while the S&P lost 2.1%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ sold off 2.55%, and the small-cap Russell dropped 2.1%. Among the ETFs, the NASDAQ tracker, Invesco QQQ Trust dropped 2.1%, and the SPDR, S&P 500, which checks both the S&P and the Dow, fell 1.7%. Tesla skidded 2.3% Monday. Among Dow leaders, Apple and Microsoft slid 2.3 and 2.9 respectively in today's stock market. In the ongoing pullback, Albemarle, Arista Networks, Excelis Technologies, and Costco, as well as Dow Jones stocks Coca-Cola, Merck, and McDonald's, are among the top stocks to buy and watch. Albemarle is an IBD leaderboard stock. Arista and Excelis were featured in this week's Stocks Near a Buy Zone column. Ahead of Tuesday's open, Dow futures, along with the S&P, rose 0.1% each versus fair value, while the NASDAQ gained 0.2%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. The 10-year yield rose to 3.03% on Monday, without the GDP to back it up. Of course, money printer go burr. Extending last week's jump, the 10-year yield is above 3% level for the first time since July of 21. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices inched higher, with West Texas Intermediate futures trading near $91 per barrel. Powell gives a speech Friday at the central bank's economic outlook from Jackhole, Wyoming. The Fed has raised interest rates this year in an attempt to bring down inflation and has signaled more increases are coming. Last week's Fed minutes seemed to push back against the market expectations for a dovish pivot, which has already helped spark a 6-week stock market rally following the June 14th to 15th meeting. Markets place a roughly 56% chance of a 75 basis point rate hike on September 21st. 1 week ago, there was a 39% chance. So, we'll continue to watch this, but it does look like they're going to make another rate hike that is intended to keep you out of the market and keep their rich investor buddies and the government spending that money like it's going out of style. But we'll continue to watch this and see where this goes. I want to grab one from the Daily Wire in finance for the morning here, because I looked at this, and while the Biden admin tells you it's the greatest economy in the world, the best one in history, I fixed it, I made it better, the numbers really do show a completely different story right here. So, reading from the Daily Wire, a record number of Americans are suffering, most since the Great Recession, according to a survey from John Rigolizzo. More Americans say they're suffering economically in 22 than in 2008, according to a new survey. According to Gallup's Life Evaluation Index for July, 5.6% of Americans said they were suffering in life, the highest number on record since Gallup established the index in 2008, breaking the previous record set in April. That figure is also higher than it was at any point during the pinko-pox pandemic and lockdowns or during the Great Recession. At the same time, the number of Americans who describe themselves as thriving dropped to an 18-month low. Since reaching a record high in June of 2021, life ratings among American adults have steadily worsened. Gallup reported the 5.6% suffering rate in July marks the first time since Gallup measures has exceeded 5% in the U.S. and translates to an estimated 14 million American adults. Using a metric called the Cantrell Self-Anchoring Striving Scale, Gallup asked respondents to rate their current lives and anticipated lives in 5 years on a scale of 1 to 10, and it classifies as suffering, struggling, or thriving based on their response. Those who rate both their current and future lives a 4 or lower are classified as suffering. Gallup noted those who rate their current life a 7 or higher, and their anticipated life in 5 years an 8 or higher, are classified as thriving. Americans of all political stripes have been classified as suffering at higher rates since last year. In June of 21, just 2.9% of Democrats, 4.7% of independents, and 2.7% of Republicans were classified as suffering. That 4%, the higher percentage of independents, is, I think, what's going to drive what's happening coming up here in November. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that's what's going to happen, but that's the way that I see this. Since then, the suffering rate has doubled among Republicans to 5.4, nearly doubled among Democrats, also to 5.4, and significantly climbed among independents to 6.2. On the flip side of the suffering scale, the number of Americans who were classified as thriving dropped to an 18-month low. Just 51.2% of Americans were classified as thriving, the lowest number since January of 2021. Among Democrats, 53% were classified as thriving, while 52.2% of Republicans and just 47.7% of independents were thriving. That number was a steep decline from the high point in the index, 59.2%, set in June of 2021, but it was still above the lowest mark on record, 46.4%. Which was set for the first time during the Great Recession in November 2008 and again in April of 2020 during the beginning of the pinko-pox lockdowns. Americans' dismal outlook on their current and future lives is likely most affected by equally dismal economic conditions. Gallup noted inflation soared to record highs for months on end, reaching a peak at 9.1% in June, just below, finally cooling to 8.5% in July. Honk honk. The U.S. economy also entered a recession in July. No, it's not a recession! Despite the Biden admin's after recording 2 quarters of negative economic growth, despite the Biden admin's attempt to spin the numbers, these factors have also dragged the Gallup Economic Confidence Index to its lowest levels since the Great Recession. Gallup's findings also come after several studies have shown just how severely inflation has impacted Americans. Recent data from Lending Club show that 61% of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck, including more than one-third of Americans making more than $200,000 a year, up from 55% in 2021. The Daily Wire reported earlier this month another study from University of Iowa reported the Daily Wire found that rural Americans are spending 91% of their after-tax income on their day-to-day expenses. I'm not that high, but it's higher than it was. 91%, that's intense. That is insane. That you could ever get to that point. And I understand how you're getting to that point. Again, I'm not there. But I bet you that I'm at a good 3/4 right now. Easily. And 3/4 is the point where I start getting uncomfortable. So, I mean, the Biden admin is going to try to spin this to you and tell you that we're in the greatest economy in the world. Everything is great. And just don't worry about that GDP number. But on the ground, and this is the reason that I do this, you're not going to get something like this from CNN. You're not going to get something like this from MSDNC. They're just going to tell you that Biden is a hero. He's wonderful, and if you question him, you're a racist, bigoted, sexist, homophobic, pig, ugly American kind of person. They like to call you that. But when you're on the ground, and you're making the same kinds of decisions like a lot of people are making right now, a lot of the people that are filling out the survey are making right now, the same kinds of decisions that I had to make in 2008, and that I hope and pray that I never have to make again. Although, there was a day that I said a prayer, begging that none of my friends, including many of you that I know personally, ever have to suffer if we have another downturn. I ask God to let me be the one to suffer because I've practiced with it, I've dealt with it before, than to let any of the people that I care about suffer. Because I know how to get by on an overdrawn bank account. I don't want to again, but I know how to do it. Let me take up the cross and let the people that I love thrive. That's my request. But we will see what happens. We'll continue to watch this. And hopefully, we won't get too bad and we'll get some sort of reprieve and turnaround coming up soon. Let's grab one from CNN. We're going to start with the natural gas. I know that everybody wants to go talk about Fauci, but this is a little bit important, I think, for the rest of us to watch here. Turmoil in the natural gas market spells trouble ahead from Julia Horowitz. As we come into heating season. The outlook for inflation in the global economy hinges in large part on where energy prices head next, which makes recent turbulences in natural gas markets a worrying development. European natural gas prices finished at a record on Monday. They remained close to that level on Tuesday after Russia's Gazprom said it would suspend flows to Germany via the Nord Stream for 3 days starting at the end of the month. Natural gas prices in Europe are almost 10 times where they stood at this time last year. That is painful, especially with heating season coming. Prices in the U.S. are significantly lower, but they're rising too. On Monday, they hit their highest level in 14 years. They've been pushed up by an increased energy use during heat waves, demand from Europe as countries try to stock up for winter and lagging production. Solomon Fiedler, an economist at Berenberg Bank, told me the sharp run-up in natural gas this week makes him confident that Europe is already entering a recession. That's funny because we're already there here, but our government keeps trying to, no, don't call it a recession. The Purchasing Managers Index from the S&P Global, released on Tuesday, which measures the services and manufacturing sectors of the economy, showed that business activity among the 19 countries that use the euro contracted for a second consecutive month. There was one reason for optimism, S&P Global said. There were, again, signs that inflationary pressures at businesses have passed their peak, with rates of increase in both input costs and output prices softening across the board. See, you keep saying that. And all we've had is 3 weeks of data since we got the numbers with heating oil, fuel oil, not seasonally adjusted. And my big fear with this is that there are going to be people out there that say, inflation is over! And they're going to go out and buy that new big TV, or the new gaming system, or the new phone, or the thing that they can't afford. And then, when the inflation jumps up to 9.8 the next month, year over year, it's going to be, as soon as they've already made this purchase, on credit of course, right in the face. But Fiedler expects the relief to be short-lived. With the recent surges in energy prices, wholesale gas prices in particular, we will probably see quite a bit more inflation for the remainder of the year, he said. This isn't just bad news for Europe. Citi has said British consumer inflation could peak at 18% in 2023, or 9 times the Bank of England's target. High demand for fuel and limited supply is also propping up natural gas prices for buyers in Asia, and in some extent in North America. Global businesses could take a hit as eye-popping bills weigh on the demand for goods and drive up their own costs. And while central banks don't have control over energy prices, they could be forced to keep hiking interest rates if the impact spreads across the economy and they need to fight a new wave of inflation. One caveat, oil prices have been moving in the opposite direction. A barrel of Brent crude, the global benchmark, is down 16% since the beginning of July. U.S. oil prices are 15% lower during the same period. So, some things to watch for as we come for that. From CNBC, European gas prices surge as Russian pipeline maintenance fuels fears of a total shutdown. From Sam Meredith. European natural gas prices surged on Monday after Russia's state-owned energy giant Gazprom said it would shut down Europe's biggest single piece of gas infrastructure for 3 days from the end of the month. The unscheduled maintenance works on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, which runs from Russia to Germany via the Baltic Sea, deepen a gas dispute between Russia and European Union, and exacerbate both the risk of a recession and a winter shortage. The front-month gas price at the Dutch TTF hub, a European benchmark for natural gas trading, jumped 19% on Monday to reach 291.5 euros per megawatt hour. The contract closed on Friday at a record high of 244.55 euros per megawatt hour, registering its 5th consecutive weekly gain. Gazprom said Friday that the shutdown was because of the pipeline's only remaining compressor requiring servicing. Gas flows via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline will be suspended for the 3-day period, August 31st to September 2nd. Gazprom said gas transmission will resume at a rate of 33 million cubic meters per day when the maintenance work is completed, provided that no malfunctions are detected. Well, that does bring up the question, is there going to be a convenient malfunction detected? And I mean, the European Union has said horrible things about Russia. I know why they would want to sell to the European Union, because the European Union has money and Russia wants the money. But, you're sitting at a point right now where you've based all of your chickens in one single, or all of your eggs rather, in one single basket. The only real place for Europe to get natural gas from on short notice is Russia. I'm sure that there are plans in place. I know that Israel and Egypt have come together to try to fill in some of the stopgap because Russia is deciding to shut down Nord Stream 2, and they basically control the purse strings on Nord Stream 1. So these two nations out there are trying to set up an emergency situation or a situation where they become the primary sellers, and we can always throw tanks on a ship and throw it across the sea and hope for the best. But in both of those situations, it does take time to get the stuff there. on a short notice, Europe is kind of screwed, and they know it, which is why they're trying to stockpile some of this now. So, and that is going to affect, again, the prices over here. As as gas companies start putting natural gas in a reserve, getting ready to go ship it across the sea if needed. So, it's going to be an interesting winter, and your heating bills are probably going to reflect this at some point. So do pay attention. And I think we have just one. Yes, we have one more before we go talk about St. Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine. From Fox Business, oil expert explains the only concrete action Biden admin took to lower gas prices. From Talia Kaplan, LaPow Oil Associates President Andy LaPow argued Monday that releasing the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is the only concrete action that Biden admin has taken thus far to lower prices at the pump. Temporarily, I remind you that there is going to come a point in this, because Biden said the oil companies are responsible for refilling the Strategic Oil Reserve. I almost said Federal Oil Reserve, but I knew that was wrong. The oil companies, the gas companies, are responsible for filling that back up. What do you think that's going to mean for your price at the pump once the demand goes up? I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be anything good. Unless we come back and drill baby drill over here. But, yeah, that's not going to happen. The only really substantive action the Biden admin took was to release the strategic oil reserves, and I think that contributed to about 15 to 20 cents a gallon of the gasoline price decline, the energy expert told Mornings with Maria on Monday. I expect as we go into the winter, especially in the latter half of September, we could see additional relief at the pump of another 15 cents a gallon as refiners begin making the winter blend that cheaper gasoline costs is passed on to the consumer. He added that the admin has done very little to get more oil and natural gas out of the ground, as much of that production and leasing is now tied up in court decisions. Last month, the White House announced the Department of Energy will be issuing a notice to sell 20 million more barrels of oil for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, as part of the Biden admin's efforts to bring down gas prices, marking the fifth such scale that the president has authorized. You're gonna be sorry, dude. While the gas prices are down significantly since a recent national average price of more than $5 a gallon in June, the average price as of Monday is still $3.90 compared to the $3.16 from a year ago, and approximately $2.39 when Biden first took office in January of 2021. The price of gas dropped below $4 for the first time since March, more than 1 week ago, when the price fell to $3.99. Liptow noted the U.S. is experiencing demand destruction as the price for key items, including gasoline, continues to weigh on consumers amid high inflation, which sits at 40-year highs. I am telling you, I am warning you, once the midterms are over and the coal comes back to fill up that strategic reserve, $6 average is not out of the question. But we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this. Let's get to the main news of the day, since I know you've all been waiting for this one here. From WBAL-TV 11. I am the science! Dr. Anthony Fauci, nation's top infectious disease expert, to step down by the end of the year. From Lauren Neergaard and Zeke Miller of the Associated Press. St. Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine, the nation's top infectious disease expert who became a household name and the subject of partisan attacks during the pinko pox pandemic, announced Monday that he will leave the federal government in December after more than 5 decades. St. Anthony directs the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is chief medical advisor to President Joe Biden, and also leads a lab studying the immune system. While the pinko pox pandemic introduced him to millions of Americans, he's given straight talk. I can already see this being a fluff piece. Jeez. He's already given straight talk to the nation about numerous outbreaks, including HIV, AIDS, SARS, pandemic flu, Ebola, and the 2001 anthrax attacks. Wasn't he wrong about HIV? I mean, I know when the HIV outbreak was coming out, that was busy being, 6. But still, I've gone into this campus and into the labs and into the hospital every day, including most weekends for 54 years. The idea of walking away from it is obviously bittersweet. I'm famous now. I'm a movie star, Fauci told the Associated Press. In announcing his departure, the 81-year-old Fauci called his roles the honor of a lifetime, but said it was time to pursue the next chapter of my career. Dude, you're 81. And I'm not saying this just because I can't stand what it was that you did to American medicine and the political division of this country. I'm saying this because you're 81 years old. Spend some time with the grandkids. You're never going to get that time back. Dude. Known for his candor, and the ability to translate complex medical information into everyday language, Fauci has been a key advisor to 7 presidents, starting with Reagan. Fauci became the face of the government response to the pinko pox as it hit in early 2020, with frequent appearances on television news and in the daily press conferences with White House officials, including then-President Trump. But as the pandemic deepened, Fauci fell out of favor with Trump when his urgings of continued public caution clashed with the former president's desire to return to normalcy and to promote unproven treatments for the virus. My God! The editorializing of this. Now, you guys know, and you're here for the fact that I didn't go to journalism school. I am an opinion contributor. And I feel like I'm more objective than crap like this. Evil Donald Trumpler and the unproven treatments of the virus. Fauci found himself marginalized by the Trump admin, but he continued to speak out publicly in media interviews, advocating social distancing and masks in public settings before the rollout of the pinko-pox vaccine. He was also the subject of political attacks and death threats, and was given security detail for his protection because you taxpayers love to pay for security detail, don't you? When Biden Hong Kong won the White House, he asked Fauci to stay on as an admin in an elevated capacity. I've been able to call him at any hour of the day because he's older than I am, and he's up at the same times that I am, man. Can I get a bran muffin chill? Biden said in a statement. Whether you've met him personally or not, he's touched all Americans' lives with his work, man. I extend my deepest thanks for his public service. The United States of America is stronger, more resilient, and healthier because of him, man. Come on. St. Anthony said that he has planned to continue working after leaving the government, saying that he wants to use his experience to hopefully inspire the younger generation of scientists and would-be scientists to consider a career in public service. For all the rancor of the coronavirus pandemic, it wasn't Fauci's first run-in with an angry public. He became the head of infectious diseases branch at the National Institutes of Health in '84, when the nation was in the throes of the AIDS crisis. Let me rephrase that. I wasn't busy being 6. I was busy being newborn. I thought that happened much later than it did. Activists protested what they saw as government indifference, and Fauci, frustrated at being unable to save dying patients in the NIH's hospital, brought them to the table in the hunt for treatments. So, I think everybody knows what's coming here. Dr. Fauci, even though we're a couple months premature, 4 months premature, the first thing that I have to say is to wish you a solemn But there's some more to speak of with this. This is the...
I do want to do other things.
Shut up. This is the actual statement from the great scientist himself.
This is a Game Chops jam.
From the National Institutes of Health. Statement by Dr. Anthony F. Fauci, MD. I'm announcing today that I'll be stepping down from the positions of Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Chief of the NIAID Laboratory of Immunoregulation, as well as the position of Chief Medical Advisor to President Joe Biden. I will be leaving these positions in December of this year to pursue the next chapter of my career. It has been an honor of a lifetime to have led the NIAID, an extraordinary institution. For so many years, through so many scientific and public health challenges, I'm very proud of my many accomplishments. I've worked with and learned from countless talented and dedicated people. Wow, that's actually starting to hurt my throat. In my own laboratory, and NIAID and NIH and beyond. To them, I express my abiding respect and gratitude. Over the past 38 years as NIAID Director, I've had the enormous privilege of serving under and advising 7 presidents of the United States. Beginning with Reagan, on a newly emerging and re-emerging infectious disease threats including HIV, AIDS, West Nile, the anthrax attack, the pandemic influenza, various bird influenza threats, Ebola and Zika, among others, and of course the most recent, the bingo pox pandemic. I am particularly proud to have served as Chief Medical Advisor to President Biden since his very first day of his administration. I was famous after all. Look at all the money that I was getting. And Dr. Fauci was getting paid more than the president was. While I'm moving on from my current positions, I'm not retiring. After more than 50 years of government service, I plan to pursue the next phase of my career. While I still have so much energy and passion for my field, and I want to use what I've learned as NIAID Director to continue to advance science and public health, to inspire and mentor the next generation. Oh God. He wants to mentor the next generation of scientific leaders as they help to prepare the world to face future infectious disease threats. Over the coming months, I will continue to put my full effort. Okay, I can't do that voice anymore. Good God. I will continue to put my full effort, passion, and commitment into my current responsibilities, as well as help prepare the Institute for Leadership Transition. The NIH is served by some of the most talented scientists in the world, and I have no doubt I am leaving the world this work in very capable hands. Thanks to the power of science and investments in research and innovation, the world has been able to fight deadly diseases and help save lives around the globe. I'm proud to have been part of this important work and look forward to helping continue to do so in the future. So, there are some concerns about the timing about this, and again, as he's pointed out, he's not leaving medicine, but he's leaving government service. Why, oh why, in December, after the election but before inauguration, would he be leaving government service, I have to wonder, but still staying in private practice, essentially, as a private citizen, not as a government employee. After a midterm where MAGA Republicans have vowed that if they win, they're going to investigate everything in the world out of this administration, down to the last millimeter. Oh, my throat's not taking one for the team yet. We'll see how bad the economy gets first. But we'll see where this goes. That's part of his statement. We're not going to read down to the end. Do I want to do this or do I want to gloss over this one? I think we're going to skip this one. And we'll go right into Mar-a-Lago because, I mean, a lot of this is just going to go highlight Fauci's accomplishments and a lot of the same propaganda that we got out of the WBA-LTV article. So let's go in and instead we'll talk about the Mar-a-Lago thing, because there's some breaking stuff coming out of that. From CNN, Trump's legal team asked for special master to go through Mar-a-Lago evidence and determine if some of it should be returned. Pretty sure all of it needs to be returned. We might come back to this one for the video because this talks about the lawsuit that we'll be talking about in the next article. So we might come back for video. From Caitlin Polans, Caitlin Collins, and Tierney Sneed. Former President Trump's legal team has asked a federal judge to appoint a special master to ensure Justice Department returns any of his private documents seized during the search of Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks ago. Trump is asking for a special master, a third-party attorney, to oversee the review of evidence gathered from the Beach Club in the criminal probe, and for the judge to pause federal investigators' work related to the evidence until the review is done, according to the new court filings. The new lawsuit marks the first legal filing by Trump's team after FBI agents carried out their search on August 8th and underscores how his legal team has struggled to coalesce around his singular strategy. It's been assigned to Judge Eileen Cannon, who was nominated to the bench by Trump in 2020. In the suit, Trump argues his constitutional rights were violated and that there may have been privileged material seized. Through the legal maneuver could slow down the Justice Department's ongoing criminal investigation, Trump's request to the federal court in South Florida could face an uphill battle after his team missed multiple opportunities to challenge the search. The August 8th search warrant at Mar-a-Lago was authorized by federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The department is aware of this evening's motion. The U.S. will file its response in court, the Justice Department spokesman Anthony Coley said in response to the new filing. The ex-president's lawyers declined to take a position in court in the immediate aftermath of the search warrant execution. They also did not weigh in on whether the search warrant affidavit should be made public before or during a court hearing last week in West Palm Beach, Florida, even though one of his attorneys was present. Yeah, but it seems like the judge was willing to do the right thing. Trump in the new filing also asked for a more detailed receipt of what was removed from Mar-a-Lago. That request, if granted, would add to the 2 receipts the FBI already provided the Trump team, describing 33 items seized, which the attorney signed off on the end of the search. The Justice Department removed 11 sets of classified documents from Trump's home. And of course, we're never going to get to see the evidence of that. According to documents unsealed by the judge last week, the inventory shows that some of the materials recovered were marked as top secret SCI, which is one of the highest levels of classification. The department has already signaled that it will be using an internal filter team to review the seized items to separate material that could be subject to privilege claims. For instance, investigators mentioned the work of a filter team when they returned to Trump private documents that wouldn't be part of the investigation, such as 2 expired passports and his government passport or diplomatic passport. Now see, we look at this, and yet, even with the filter team, we've already got fruit of the poison tree. Whereas, somebody from the government that is not ever supposed to see material that's attorney-client privileged is going to be looking at material that's attorney-client privileged and deciding whether or not it's attorney-client privileged. You see where some of the problem comes in off of this? The Justice Department, in court documents, said it believed the evidence it collected at Mar-a-Lago would support its criminal investigation into the mishandling of federal records, including national defense material, after Trump's team took boxes of records to Florida when he left office. The investigation is also looking at potential obstruction of justice in the investigation. The DOJ said it has concerns that further information becoming public or known by Trump's team could prompt witnesses or document tampering, and according to CNN and New York Times reports, a lawyer for Trump told investigators in writing that no classified records were left in Mar-a-Lago after June. The FBI said an inventory list at the end of the search said that there were additional classified documents retrieved. So the lawsuit is out there, and we will begin to see what it is that needs to be returned and what doesn't. But the lawsuit does go further. Trump sues to block DOJ from reviewing materials FBI seized at Mar-a-Lago until watchdog is appointed. So this goes into a little bit more detail of what the actual lawsuit is from Dan Mangan and Kevin Breininger over at CNBC. Former President Trump in a new lawsuit Monday asking that a federal judge appoint a special watchdog to review documents seized from his Florida home as part of a criminal investigation of the removal of the White House records when he left office in January 2021. Trump's lawsuit, which suggests the August 8th FBI raid was politically motivated, also asked the DOJ to be blocked from further review of seized materials until his Mar-a-Lago residence until the so-called special master is appointed to review the documents. Special masters are appointed in criminal cases where there's a concern that some material seized by authority could not be viewed by investigators because it's protected by attorney-client privilege. And that's the problem, or other factors that weigh against it being used in prosecution. Special masters were appointed to review material seized in federal criminal probes of two of Trump's former personal attorneys, Michael Cohen and Rudy Giuliani. Trump's suit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida accuses the federal government of violating his Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures, which is believed to be the first time the home of a former president was searched in connection with a criminal case. In addition to seeking a special master, the suit asks that the DOJ be required to provide him with more detailed inventory of property seized at the Palm Beach resort. Which is interesting because he wants to know everything that was in the boxes that they seized, but he doesn't want them to be able to go through the boxes until the special master is appointed. Kind of a conflict there. And it requests that the government return any seized item that was not within the scope of the search warrant authorizing the raid, which is very difficult because the scope of the warrant authorizing the raid was, I think, entirely too broad. Anything and everything the president touched from 2017 on to 2021 is subject to the purview of the search warrant. Four years of documents. It's kind of hard to come back and say, oh, no, we weren't authorized for this, when I think that's going to be the vast majority of what was there. So, some more to watch with this and see where we go, but the big news off of this one here, Judge Reinhart formally rejects the DOJ argument to keep the Trump affidavit sealed, calls the raid unprecedented. Has Judge Reinhart turned on the DOJ, I wonder? Or is he trying to save his own bacon? Because he knows that this did not go over as well with the American people as he thought it was going to. And again, honestly, in a situation like this, for President Biden, for Judge Reinhart, for a lot of people right now, it would be very, very easy if this did turn itself south to just turn around and throw Merrick Garland under the bus because he has a distinct conflict of interest in this situation, being the person who was passed over by Trump to sit on the Supreme Court. As good as I think that was for the nation, for him not to be on the Supreme Court, that puts him in a major conflict of interest. A massive conflict of interest, in fact. And once he has outlived his usefulness, the next question will be, okay, well, we don't like you anymore, so, hey, it was all Merrick's fault. Get him. From Brooke Singman. Bruce Reinhart on Monday admitted the FBI's raid on former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home was unprecedented and formally rejected the Justice Department's argument to keep the affidavit leading to the search under seal, citing the intense public and historical interest. Reinhart, in a filing on Monday, said he rejects the government's argument that the present record justifies keeping the entire affidavit under seal. The government arguments that even requiring it to redact portions of the affidavit that could not reveal agent identities or investigative sources and methods imposes an undue burden on its resources and sets a precedent that could be disruptive and burdensome in future cases, Reinhart wrote. I do not need to reach the question of whether, in some cases, these concerns could justify denying public access. They very well might. He added, particularly given the intense public and historical interest of an unprecedented search of a former president's residence, the government has not yet shown that these administrative concerns are sufficient to justify sealing. Reinhart said he's given the Justice Department an opportunity to propose redaction, something that he granted last week, giving the government a deadline of Thursday, August 25th at noon. Accordingly, it's hereby ordered that by the deadline, the government shall file under seal of submission, addressing possible redactions and providing any additional evidence or legal argument that the government believes relevant to the pending motions to unseal, the motion states. Reinhart, during a highly anticipated hearing in the West Palm Beach Division of Florida last Thursday, said the entire affidavit should not be kept under seal, despite the Justice Department's argument that the release would jeopardize future steps in the investigation and provide a roadmap for the probe. Reinhart will then review those redactions and determine how best to proceed, whether to accept the recommendations from government prosecutors or perform his own redactions instead. The judge also reminded the government or media, the two parties in the suit, can appeal his ruling if one or both object to the proposed redactions, which would remain under seal. So, we're going to get to see this. And I don't believe that it's going to be the government that's going to be doing the redactions, which is going to be interesting. Because really, honestly, the DOJ can turn around and redact whatever they want off of this. You know, even as far as crossing out a word "the" or magic markering out a word "the." Completely changes the tone and tenor of the document. I mean, we've seen some of the 9/11 reports, the redacted reports, where you get the page and it's just black marker from top to bottom. And 3/4 of the way down the page, there's the word "the" that's unredacted. We've seen this kind of stuff come out of the government before. But we shall watch, we shall see what happens with this and where this goes. Here's a who could have seen that coming moment from the Daily Wire. Earmuffs. If you've got your kids in the car or you're listening with the kids, let's do some earmuffs right about now. Not a effing hero left turns on Liz Cheney after the primary loss. From Virginia Kruta. The left quickly turned on recently ousted Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney after her re-election bid failed to make it past the Republican primary last week. Yeah. Who could have seen that coming? Who, in their right mind, could have seen the leftoids, some of whom I have stood shoulder to shoulder with, protesting the Cheney family for their war crimes, of which there are many. I was a little surprised to see them come in and say, hey, you know what, we kind of like this person now because she says mean things about the Orange Man, but as soon as she's no longer relevant, as soon as she no longer has a government position and thinks that she's going to go back and run for president as the Bomber Brown Kids in Chief, they suddenly remember why they were protesting her in the first place. Yeah, who could have seen that coming? For weeks, left-leaning Twitter accounts and even media pundits and other elected Democrats championing the former Republican leader for her work on the January 6th Selfie Fest committee and her opposition to the former president, but once she lost her primary to Trump-backed Harriet Hageman and hinted at a possible 2024 presidential run, the left began to abandon her. Larry Middleton, L78 Lancer, made it clear that Cheney's efforts with regard to the January 6th committee were appreciated, but that he did not mean that he trusted her with anything beyond that. He tweeted, "Remember, folks, that Liz Cheney voted with Trump 93% of the time, so while her work on the 1-6 committee is purportedly to save democracy, her goal is not to save the Democrats. Don't get it twisted. No, it's to save the mono party." Which includes a lot of the Democrats that you claim to love but don't actually like. Never will you catch me cheering on someone who applauded the removal of reproductive rights of women and voted with Trump 93% of the time. At the Lady Gray added, "I will hold my praise for someone worthy of it. A Republican is still a Republican. Cheney is not a fucking hero." USA Today opinion columnist Michael J. Stern explained Liz Cheney put country over party when Trump ignited a selfie fest in an effort to take over American democracy. She gets credit for that, but she voted with Trump 93% of the time. She celebrated the end of Roe. Quit saying you'll vote for her if she runs for president. I seriously can't understand lifelong Democrats and resistors who would vote for Liz Cheney if she ran in 2024, another added. She voted against the Voting Rights Act, giving a boost to voter suppression. Bragged when Roe v. Wade was overturned, voted with Trump 93% of the time, and look at this gem. What followed was a screenshot of a 2016 tweet from Cheney that read, "Hillary Clinton is a serial liar, guilty of criminal behavior, and must never again have access to classified material." Where's the lie? I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And then, yes, they're reading from a script, by the way. 93% of time, 93% of her career, vote with Trump. Cheer Roe versus Wade. No mention of the fact that she, like her father, is a war criminal. And is getting major kickbacks from Raytheon and Halliburton, too, by the way. No mention of that. Donations she received for 2022 election cycle: oil and gas, 142,000; pharmaceutical, 93,000; women's issues, 133,000; real estate, 394,000; securities and investments, 637,000. Dara Faye added. Twitchy's Politibunny said that most conservatives had seen the 180-degree turn coming from a mile away. Knew this was going to happen after Cheney was no longer useful to our pals on the left. Yeah, who could have seen this one coming? I did not see that tweet. I don't know if Politibunny is being suppressed or not, but let's make sure that we go and give that a like and a retweet. Because we like Politibunny around here. One of the few non-Green Check verified journalists that I will read from, because I know her personally. German economy minister rules out keeping nuclear plants running to save gas. From Reuters. Well, yeah, you should be doing that. You should be switching over, doing more nuclear. It's not going to eliminate your fossil fuels and the so-called emissions that you say come from them, but it'll make them go for a little bit longer. No author given. German economy minister Robert Habeck ruled out Sunday extending the lifespan of the country's 3 remaining nuclear power plants in order to save gas, saying it would save at most 2% of gas use. Yeah, that's 2% that you need right now, dude. These savings were not sufficient to be worth reopening the debate about the exit from nuclear energy, given the consensus of the topic, he said during a discussion with citizens at the government's Open Door Day. Former Chancellor Angela Merkel initiated legislation to halt the use of nuclear power by the end of the year after the Fukushima nuclear disaster of 2011, with a majority of voters in favor, but attitudes are shifting amid fears of an energy crisis this winter following the decline of Russian gas deliveries, with a three-way coalition itself divided on the matter. It is wrong decision given the little we would save, said Habeck, a member of the Greens Party, which has its roots in the anti-nuclear movement of the 70s and 80s. Yeah, you're going to need just about everything that you can get right now, and, you're still going to need fuel of some point. Typically, you don't get furnaces that just run off electric. You typically do need to heat something up in order to do so. So, this will be interesting to watch. From Fox News, Biden discusses Iran, Ukrainian nuclear power plant with UK, French, and German leaders. From Bradford Betts, President Brandon on Sunday met with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Germany Chancellor Olaf Scholz to discuss Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant held by Russian forces since March. The White House said the leaders agreed to avoid military operations near the plant, and that it was imperative International Atomic Energy Agency visit as soon as possible to ascertain the state of safety systems. The leaders also discussed ongoing negotiations over Iran's nuclear program and the need to support their partners in the Middle East as a bulwark against Iran's destabilizing regional activities. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear facility in Ukraine's south has been controlled by Russian forces since shortly after the invasion began on February 24th. Ukraine has accused Russia of storing troops and weapons at the plant and using it as grounds to launch strikes against Ukrainian-controlled territory. Well, yeah, I'm sure that one of the safest places for you to go back and launch strikes from is the place that nobody wants to go and shoot. Ukrainian officials and military analysts, meanwhile, say Moscow's forces have cynically employed the plant as a shield, knowing that Ukrainians would be hesitant to fire back. Russia has denied the accusations and in turn accused Ukrainian forces of repeatedly shelling the plant. Well, you guys were doing that too, so... The French presidency said in a statement that Macron, in a recent conversation with Vladimir Putin, underlined his concerns regarding the situation at the Zaporizhzhia plant and expressed his support for the deployment of an IAEA mission to the site as soon as possible. Putin agreed to an IAEA mission under certain terms discussed with Macron. The Kremlin said the Russian side reaffirmed its readiness to offer the necessary assistance to the agency's experts. So, while Germany is shutting down 3 plants, Russia is holding on to one plant as a human shield, or as a shield. It's interesting that, the Ukraine war hasn't got any more airplay than it has, especially since everything else they're doing in the lead up to the midterms is failing miserably. From The Blaze, nearly 50,000 students in the LA Unified School District did not attend their first day of school. From Courtney Wheel, when teachers in the LA Unified School District took attendance on August 15th, the first day of school, they discovered that a significant number of students listed on their rolls were not there. According to reports, nearly 50,000 students, approximately 11% of the entire student population, were absent. Despite improvements, the district is still struggling to return to a pre-Pinko Pox attendance level. Last year, with Pinko Pox protocols firmly in place, chronic absenteeism skyrocketed to nearly 50%. So officials are attempting to address the issue of absenteeism right out of the gate in 2022. Such high absenteeism cannot be the case this year, said new district superintendent Alberto Carvalho. Particularly when we talk about black and brown kids, kids in poverty, English language learners, kids with disabilities. Otherwise known as the people who are rife for indoctrination. They lost so much ground, he added. Now's the time to accelerate. That's why I'm talking to parents. You need to have your kids in school. Schools are safe. Our protocols and protections are in place. Free breakfast, free lunch, free stuff. Come on in here. Get your free stuff. Come to school every single day. This is the time. This is the moment. And again, as I predicted at the beginning of the Pinko Pox when they started doing remote learning, I said this is not going to last very long because in order to indoctrinate, They need to have butts in the seats. And this was before I made the determination to try to clean up the language to cater to a more AM radio-centric audience, so I said a different word at the time, but that's what they need. If they want to indoctrinate the next generation of people to worship the government cult the way that they do, they need butts in seats. Commie coof cases in the area have dropped dramatically, and students and staff no longer have to test weekly like they did last year. Though at-home tests have been furnished for students and families, masks are strongly encouraged but not required. Mercury News reported anecdotally that students and parents at 2 district schools largely opted not to wear them last Monday. Though the commie coof concerns may have kept some students at home, some in the district believe that absenteeism is caused by other struggles, such as mental illness and issues with transportation and childcare for younger siblings. Or maybe it's parents that are realizing that these schools are crap and trying to get them out of those schools. Although it is Los Angeles, so that might not actually be the case. And the other side of it here, from NBC4.com, out of Columbus, Ohio. Teachers begin picketing outside Columbus schools with no negotiations scheduled. Well, I can still see your acronym gains, but I don't know what it stands for. I know the Nightbot got you, but I don't know what that one stands for. Tanstuffle. From Maeve Walsh. Hours after voting to go on strike, Columbus teachers assembled picket lines outside school buildings on Monday with no new negotiations scheduled. With students, parents, and teachers in limbo, spokespersons for the 4,500-member teachers union and the school board for Ohio's largest public school district spoke at separate news conferences Monday. Columbus Education Association union spokesperson Regina Fuentes and board president Jennifer Adair agreed on at least one thing. They wanted to get back to the negotiating table. We understand that parents are in a difficult space right now, but we also want them to understand that we are doing this for the students, Fuentes said, and we truly are making the sacrifice because we want the schools that Columbus students deserve. Apparently, we have an exclusive with the union spokesperson. So let's listen to that. Wait, Days of Our Lives is still on the air?
With their final offer, we hear more from the CEA and what this means for students as the school year here approaches.
Yeah, CEA spokesperson Regina Fuentes live with us here in the studio. And my first question to you, when they talked about unfair labor practices, the board said 8% is the pay hike that teachers are asking for. Not many families get an 8% pay hike. Is that true? Is that what the request was?
At the point that the district made that offer, we had never even gotten to talking about the economics in our contract negotiations. We wanted to get to an understanding, and you understand that when two parties come together like that, the one party's going to have an offer, the other one's going to have another offer, and you come in the middle.
Yeah.
They never did that. They said 3, done. So any numbers that they put out there, were very premature.
Have you countered with 8?
We have made some progress in the economic area, but we really haven't even gotten into that conversation with negotiating, because really for us, and I want people to understand, this is not a conflict about our salary. Yes, salary is part of the conversation, but this is about doing what's right by our students and fixing these schools and getting the district to be accountable for the promises that they made and the promises that they're not keeping.
Jennifer Adair this morning said in her opening statement, "We have not received notice of their sticking points. We've heard it in the press, we've heard it on TV and on the radio. We haven't received anything from them." True?
That is a lie. In our proposals, our bargaining members came to the table with a full comprehensive list of everything that they needed for the non-economic issues, and we're prepared to discuss and get into some of the economic issues. We got a little bit into that, but we did not get through with the process before they decided to shut it down.
I have to ask you, we hear so much about the condition of some of the schools,
Yes.
and some of the schools we know are in deplorable physical condition. Tell me the problems that teachers have talked to you about in their classrooms, in the schools, in the hallways, in the restrooms.
Well, we are in buildings that are, in some cases, 30, 40 years old. So, and maybe some older than that. In my own building, Eastmore Academy, when they did install the HVA system, it opened up a whole new can of worms when you're trying to tie into an older air conditioning or a heating unit that was a boiler. You open up plumbing that's, antiquated, and we get, all types of vermin. We do actually have to deal with vermin almost on a daily basis. You flick
You're
on a
talking
light.
mice?
I'm talking mice. I'm talking bugs. I'm talking water dripping from the ceilings. It's a true, real problem. We're not making this up.
Regina, I have to ask very quickly, is there hope?
There is hope, because our kids give us hope. And every day that they give us a chance to come to school and teach them, that gives us hope to continue fighting. We want to be in the classroom with our students. We want to be there. We want to be ready. We want to be teaching them. But we're not willing to settle for the status quo for them. And the way that Adair and Dr. Dixon have been presenting this offer is if they just can't possibly budge. We don't believe that. We don't believe that this negotiation can't go any further. Be accountable.
So, I do have some questions about this, especially, if there's that level of filth in the school, that in and of itself should be more of a concern for me than the salary of the teachers. But that seems to be the salaries upfront first and foremost on everybody's minds. So I guess my first question is if you got that 8% or even a 10% raise off of this, if you went back and tried to hardball for a little bit more, would you still be out working in the filth and the vermin and everything else? It seems like the priorities are mixed up here. And yes, I do understand where the union will come out and, I promise you we'll get you that quarter raise. And then he goes and gets off in his brand new Corvette and drives off the job site. That is how the labor union works, especially in the public sector. But man, oh man again. Before I did anything else, especially if there are kids involved, if you are having that much of a problem with filth and wildlife, I would go there first. But that's just me. I think somewhat rationally. All right. Let's gloss over this one here, because we covered most of that in the local story. But here's another one here from the New York Post. New Jersey elementary school drops Thomas Jefferson's name over slave ownership. Yep, we're rewriting history at this point. From Natalie O'Neill. A New Jersey elementary school dropped Thomas Jefferson's name because he owned slaves and changed it to honor the first black woman ever to graduate from a local high school, according to a report on Friday. Jefferson Elementary in South Orange will be renamed Delia Bolden Elementary after students began pushing to scrap the nation's third president more than a year ago, according to NewJersey.com. The South Orange Maplewood Board of Education voted 6-3 to change it in June, with a board member, Chloe Tellisford, criticizing Jefferson's history of slave ownership. I want to make that point that Jefferson owned over 600 slaves. He freed 2 while he was alive and 7 after he died, which basically means I have a 1.5% chance of being free in Thomas Jefferson's world, said Tellisford, who is black. So I'm not thankful to him. I'm thankful to the people who made sure that I could actually be free and be on the board with you today. Which is funny because if we were still under English rule, who knows how long that would have stayed along. The school will now celebrate Winnie Delia Bolden, the first black woman to graduate from nearby Columbia High School in Maplewood in 1912, officials said. Bolden read an essay at her graduation that year criticizing turn-of-the-century racial politics and championing equal rights. Her name was picked by a subcommittee of fifth graders and chosen over late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Olympian Joetta Clark Diggs, and inventor Erna Schneider. Of course they were all women. Why wouldn't they be? Superintendent of Schools Ron Taylor called the renaming a real-life civics lesson at the June 29th school board meeting. Seeing the work the students did, I think, exceeded the expectations of all of us who participated in the conversation when that was the final outcome to really engage the students. Well, we'll see how it works. Dennis Rodman got in the news here, and I got a couple articles about this. Dennis Rodman says he's going to Russia to seek the release of Brittany Griner. From Jonathan Allen. Former NBA player Dennis Rodman said Saturday that he plans to visit Russia to seek the release of Brittany Griner, the WNBA star who was sentenced to 9 years in prison on drug charges earlier this month. I got permission to go to Russia to help that girl, Rodman told NBC News at a restaurant in D.C. I'm trying to go this week. Over under on whether or not Rodman gets arrested while he's over there too? Come on, who's got an over under on this one? He's more likely to hurt than help, said a senior Biden admin official, which we'll be covering a little bit later in another one. It's public information the admin has made a significant offer to the Russians, and anything other than negotiating further through the established channel is likely to complicate and hinder release efforts, said the official. If Rodman goes to Russia, it won't be the first time he's conducted informal diplomacy with an international leader who has strained relations in the U.S. Rodman has cultivated a relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un over the past decade, making multiple visits to the Hermit Kingdom he called the Russian President Vladimir Putin cool. After a 2014 trip to Moscow in 2018, he showed up to one of the sidelines of former President Trump's meeting with Kim in Singapore and has credited himself with helping to secure the release of American Kenneth Bae from North Korea. The U.S. has imposed stiff sanctions on Russia in response to the invasion of Ukraine, which is probably why Griner is sitting in prison for 9 years over what would, I think, normally be a paltry charge. Griner's imprisonment has created an additional source of tension between the two countries and a potential avenue for diplomacy. But hey, she doesn't have to hear the U.S. national anthem anymore. Although, that would be funny if they came up and decided to do that for her. Comrade, you hate the United States, but you wish them to come and help you out. I tell you what, Comrade Griner, you wish Americans to come save you so much. We play American national anthem for you every day in prison, morning, noon, and night. I could see a vindictive guard doing something like that. And I think that's kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. From Fox News, State Department makes clear stance on Dennis Rodman's Russia travel. From Ryan Gatos. NBA legend Dennis Rodman made waves over the weekend when he revealed his plans to go to Russia to advocate for the release of WNBA superstar Brittany Griner, who was sentenced to 9 years in prison after she was convicted of drug charges. Rodman told NBC News over the weekend he got permission to travel to Russia to help that girl, and he didn't elaborate on who gave him the green light to travel to Russia. On Monday, State Department spokesman Ned Price was asked about Rodman's travel plans. Well, we've seen through the media, and really only through the media, that Rodman has said that he does intend to travel to Russia. And I want to be clear, he would not be traveling on behalf of the U.S. government, Price said. I've just reiterated what we've said now for the past several weeks. We put forward a substantial proposal to Russia to seek the freedom of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. We believe that anything other than negotiating further through the established channels is likely to complicate and hinder those release efforts. We've also provided very clear guidance to American citizens owing to a number of threats, not to the least of which the threat of wrongful detention, that Americans should not travel to Russia. That has been our message to private Americans across the board. I think my big problem here is with Rodman doing informal diplomacy before and actually having a rapport with Putin. I think they might actually be a little bit afraid that he might show the State Department up and actually succeed in this. And also, really honestly, there's a part of me that believes that the State Department really doesn't want her back because she is one of those I hate America types. They put on a good show and a big show because she's black and lesbian. But realistically, I'm pretty sure they don't want her back. I'm not going to archive this one or see if it's archived. Well, see if it's archived. If not, we'll get the archive onto it. But yeah, it's been archived already. But this has most of the information from what I can see from the last two. Let's skip this one here. Go on to the Blaze. Defense Department rebuffs second request for the DC National Guard to help be deployed amid migrant influx. We want more undocumented immigration. Nobody's illegal. Okay, well, have them in your city. What are we going to do about all these undocumented immigrants in our city? We don't have the resources for this. From Alex Nitzberg. The Defense Department has once again denied D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's request for the D.C. National Guard to be deployed as an influx of migrants arrive in the city. The D.C. National Guard has no specific experience in or training of this kind of mission or unique skills for providing facility management, beating sanitation, or ground support, Defense Department Executive Secretary Kelly Bulliner-Holly noted in a Monday letter to Bowser, according to Fox News. Approval of this request would also result in substantial readiness impact to the DCNG, Holly wrote. Devoting the personnel or the facility for such an extended mission would force the cancellation or disruption of military training. Ha! 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 This marks the second time the Pentagon has denied the city's request for the D.C. National Guard to be deployed due to the migrant influx as the U.S. continues to be inundated by massive numbers of migrants along the nation's southern border. The Republican governors of Texas and Arizona have been busing some migrants to the nation's capital, though the trips are taken by those migrants are on a voluntary basis. That's the best part. They can't force them to go. But so many of these, because they've been watching American media as they travel across the country, and before they decide to go travel across Mexico into the United States, and hear people like Muriel Bowser, Eric Adams, or formerly the people of New York, Bill de Blasio, and the politicians of the Congress all say how much they would love to open up and let all the illegal migrants in. Because we have space for everybody. We love everybody here. Nobody should be illegal. Well, they're here and they want to go and thank the people personally who advocated for the situation. I still think this is funny. In a letter last month, Christopher Rodriguez, the director of the D.C. Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, requested the help of the D.C. National Guard on behalf of Mayor Bowser. The letter declared the governors of Texas and Arizona are making a political statement to the federal government, and instead, their actions are having direct impacts on city and regional resources in ways that are unsustainable. After that request was rebuffed by the Defense Department, Bowser tried again. In an August 11th letter, Bowser wrote, "The District of Columbia writes to provide additional information to support our July 19th request to deploy the D.C. National Guard to help prevent a prolonged humanitarian crisis in our nation's capital resulting from the daily arrival of migrants in need of assistance." Ha! Ha! That's funny. From ABC 25, Texas immigration attorney and federal magistrate arrested for human smuggling. Yeah, who could have seen that coming? From Gloria Ocore, an immigration attorney and federally appointed magistrate in Texas was arrested and charged with smuggling of a human and resisting arrest. Timothy D. Jaffet was arrested Saturday afternoon in Kinney County by Constable Jimmy Fullen. 4 adult men were detained alongside Jaffet. It is unknown if the men were taken against their will or if they were paid Jaffet to transport them. It's also unknown if Jaffet represented the group illegally. According to an ID card retrieved by Fullen, Jaffet has been licensed since 2003. Authorities did not disclose whether the men were citizens, legal residents, or undocumented, or their country of origin. The current whereabouts and status of the 4 men were not provided. So, not much information here, but enough information to say something fishy's going on. No, I don't want notifications from Auto Evolution. Go to hell. Ford ordered to pay massive $1.7 billion settlement in 2014 crash case. Ford has been ordered to pay a gigantic $1.7 billion settlement by a jury in Georgia with regards to an old case from 2014 where a couple lost their lives in a pickup truck crash. That is a beautiful 250, by the way. Georgia couple Melvin and Von Seal Hill were killed in April of 2014 when their 2002 F-250 rolled over. The couple's children, Kim and Adam Hill, sued Ford, claiming the roofs on the pickups were dangerously defective. Lawyers for the plaintiffs, as part of the Butler Panther LLP, submitted evidence of nearly 80 similar rollover incidents that showed 4 trucks with their roofs crushed, resulting in serious injuries and even loss of lives, as reported by Reuters. An award of punitive damages to hopefully warn people riding around in millions of those trucks Ford sold was the reason the Hill family insisted on a verdict, said Butler, who was quoted by the Associated Press. According to closing arguments made by the defense attorney, William Withrow Jr., the carmaker had to defend itself from accusations that Ford and its engineers acted willfully and wantonly with a conscious indifference for the safety of the people who ride in their cars when they made these decisions about roof strength. Of course, Ford will appeal the $1.7 billion verdict, claiming lack of evidence against their old Super Duty models. While our sympathies will go out to the Hill family, we do not believe the verdict is supported by evidence, and we plan to appeal, said the carmaker in a statement to the Associated Press over the past weekend. Yeah, that's a part of the problem is I think they're going to win on appeal off of this. Not because I don't believe that there's a problem with the roofs, because I've seen, especially with these first generation crew cabs, like they were doing in these vehicles, but the malice part of it, the acting with malice or wanton disregard for it, I don't think is going to hold up in an appeals court. I'm actually really surprised it held up in the initial court. I don't deny that with 80 vehicles like that, having a problem like that, that there isn't a problem with the roof structure in this. It's the problem that I have is with the malice. Can we actually show malice in a case like this? And I don't think we can. But in other automotive news, you know, we've got such a great economy and they're adding so many jobs. Well, another 3,000 jobs have been added to the tally of 8,000 that we already lost. From CNBC, Ford to eliminate 3,000 jobs in an effort to cut costs. From Michael Wayland. Ford Motor is cutting about 3,000 jobs from its global workforce as the automaker attempted to lower costs as part of a restructuring effort under CEO Jim Farley. Ford began notifying workers of the reductions, and Monday, a company spokesman confirmed the cuts are for 2,000 salaried positions and 1,000 agency jobs in the US, Canada, and India. Farley and Ford chair Bill Ford said in a message to employees that was obtained by CNBC. So it doesn't look like there's going to be anybody on the floor, but I mean, how many of those people are still on the floor at this point in this country? I think they've all been shipped out to Canada and Mexico. And this is in stark contrast to, by the way, during the Pinko-Pox pandemic, when both under the Emergency Defense Production Act to do ventilators and masks, and then even then afterwards during the negotiations, when they were threatened with tariffs so hard that they decided to not only keep more jobs in this country but add more. Building this future requires changing and reshaping virtually all aspects of the way we've operated for more than a century. It requires focus, clarity, and speed. And as we've discussed in recent months, it means redeploying resources and addressing our cost structure, which is uncompetitive versus traditional and new competitors, the message reads. Ford's cost-cutting actions are the latest in a series of efforts by companies to reduce expenses and employee headcount amid fears of potential recession or an economic softening, with inflation hovering near a 40-year high. The cuts, which were first reported Monday by Automotive News, come less than a month after Farley told analysts, "We absolutely have too many people in certain places, no doubt about it." Don't worry. I'm sure that people with skills like yours will have no problem finding a job in either the hospitality or the food service industries. And unfortunately, that old Bill Murray line is starting to come true in the Biden admin. From the Blaze, mockery erupts over a photo of an incredibly decrepit-looking gun that the Toronto Police Department took off the streets. From Alex Nitzberg. Social media users have been mocking a tweet that features the photograph of an extremely decrepit gun that the Toronto Police Service in Canada has apparently removed from the streets. The @TPS Gun Seized Twitter account, which is described as the official Toronto Police account for all guns seized, posted the photo of a pistol that had seen likely better days. The tweet included text that read, "Off the streets this week." Mockeries abounded in the tweet, garnered thousands of replies and retweets. "Off the streets where, Atlantis?" someone quipped in response to the post, and that is the gun that they took off the streets. Don't worry, that gun will never hurt anybody again because it's off the streets. Are we even positive that there's a firearm underneath that? The streets of Pompeii, someone else retweeted. By streets, you mean the bottom of a river, another person wrote. Another tweet suggests the streets refer to the fictional undersea town of Bikini Bottom from the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants. Are you ready, kids? Ha! The streets. The streets of Toronto are now safe from tetanus, another tweet said. The Toronto police are really on the ball. I thank them for taking this weapon of mass destruction off the streets. Someone else tweeted along with a laughing emoji. Yeah, what is this? Like maybe a 32 revolver? Maybe a 22 revolver? It's tiny, whatever it is. Little snub-nosed guy. About 16 inches in total. This group of criminals that weapon was taken from. So that's what we see after that. And I mean, again, that's not the first time Toronto police got into problems here. News release. Missing woman. Ryerson Avenue and Bathurst Street area. Isabella de Grace. Missing woman. Alright, and the last one. Then we'll do Twitter trending and head out of here. McDonald's finally brings hit twist on the classic Big Mac to the US. From Michael Lee. We're always looking to give our fans more ways to enjoy the classic menu items they know and love, McDonald's said of the addition of the new Big Mac, according to Fox 6. The sandwich will include 2 tempura chicken patties, pickles, shredded lettuce, and American cheese, a combination the company said was a huge success when it was rolled out to customers in the UK. The Chicken Big Mac came amid a fast food feud that has been dubbed the Chicken Sandwich Wars, which have intensified since Popeyes introduced its popular chicken sandwich in 2019. I've had the Popeyes one. The Popeyes one is meh. I still like Chick-fil-A's better. Other chains have followed the trend, with McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's introducing new sandwiches meant to compete with Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. I have not tried the McDonald's one. I've tried the Wendy's one. And Burger King, obviously, I don't spend money at because they can't stop putting out cringe woke ads. Chicken continues to be a significant opportunity for us. We've got some great global equities already in our McNuggets and with McChicken, but we also have some equities in McCrispy and McSpicy that we think we've got an opportunity to do more with globally, so that's going to be a priority area, McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczynski said in a Q2 earnings call. The new sandwich will be rolled out later this month for a limited time at select Miami locations. Well, there is, by the way, a girl that used to be into me until she found out my thoughts on vaccination, and especially coerced vaccination in a bar while you're drunk. And she made those points known to me very, very, very clearly, but before that she had mentioned that I should go out and try a chicken McGriddle. And since they don't have them at the McDonald's here, I cracked the code on the McGriddle recipe and made them at home. It's really easy, by the way. I can teach it to you. So I went out and I got some cheap chicken patties. McDonald's special. Cheap chicken patties. And made some homemade McGriddles. And then I proceeded to eat them and they were delicious. And then when I was coming home from Georgia over the 4th of July, I stopped at McDonald's right before the Tennessee line. Right after KTZed was done with Contemporary. I stopped at a McDonald's there. And it turns out in at least that part of Georgia, they do offer the Chicken McGriddle on the menu. So if you're ever down in Georgia, round about July, if you ain't in a hurry, then you ought to stop by. Go give it a try. It's delicious. I wish they'd put that in more of their restaurants. But yes, they're jumping on board with the chicken sandwich wars. I think I might try that on a cheat day, if they bring it back around here. I am not a fan of Thousand Island dressing, so I've not had the special sauce. But usually I'll just swap that for ketchup when I get a Big Mac. On the 4 occasions I've ever had a Big Mac. Because there's just so much bread in the thing. Even when I'm not on low carb, it's just like there's so much bread in it. But that's what we have. Alright, let's look at Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. Trending tab. Let's see what it is that Twitter thinks that we should be talking about, instead of what we actually talked about. We will do the top 5 trends, skipping, of course, Tuesday Vibe, Tuesday Motivations, and Tuesday Thoughts. So, we will start. Hashtag Archetypes. Meghan Markle's first show premieres on Spotify. And I will not be listening to it, by the way. There are better things that I could listen to on Spotify, like All Time Low, or Veruca Salt, or The Donnas. I've been waiting to pencil in Veruca Salt for things I like, by the way, for a while. Hell, I would rather listen to Shapiro on Spotify than Meghan Markle. Welcome to Archetypes. I think we can listen to the introduction here.
Welcome to Archetypes. Let's do this. Welcome to Archetypes.
Don't believe the type. Hashtag Archetypes. I'm not going to lie. I still have no idea who this lady is. I know that she scored a literal prince and then tried to change him. And succeeded. And that's about all that I know. And apparently she was in movies. But since I've only ever seen 5 movies in my life, it would be interesting to know that that's probably why I have no idea who she is. Alright, Kobe. Apparently it's Kobe's birthday, and we do have to remember the F's in the chat for Kobe because he passed away. He would have been 44 today. Forever in our hearts, with the Ukrainian hearts. But that's also the LA Lakers hearts color, so. I was never much of a basketball person, but I do understand the sheer amount of popular culture influence that Kobe had. I mean, he was mentioned in everything. I don't know if I would have agreed with everything that he would have had to say because I didn't pay much attention to him while he was alive, but I know he was big in charity, and I like that. I enjoy that very much. I know that he was big into self-determination, so I enjoy that very much. And yeah, I remember when he passed. And I think Generational Gap was doing a pop-up impromptu at the time. So, there's a damn fly over on my camera. Go play with the plants, fly. Go play with those. You'll enjoy it, I promise. But yes, remembering Kobe on his birthday. Let's see. Best excuses to take a day off will be our third one here. Let's look at this. I won the lottery, also taking the rest of the days off too. Hashtag best excuses to take a day off. I'll report on the details later, but something important is happening that I cannot explain. My dad ate the homework. Best excuses to take a day off. Because somebody's got to throw a Trump one in there. Honestly, my outfit was too good for work and I didn't want to waste it. Hashtag best excuses to take a day off. I am recovering from getting sucked into the intake of a jet on the deck of an aircraft carrier. That's interesting. I don't know that too many people survive that. My cat needs me. I know people who would do that, by the way. Jen says, well, I took yesterday off because I was flying back from moving my daughter into her first college apartment and meeting her very, very serious boyfriend. Spoiler alert, we loved him. When there's still weed in the grinder, best excuses to take a day off. I miss weed. The classic, anal glaucoma. Can't see my ass coming, doing a damn thing today. I thought it's usually can't see my ass coming to work today. Alright. That's our number 3 trend. Or their number 4, but we skipped the Tuesday vibe. Number 5, which is our 4th one here, Election Day. Voters cast ballots in primary elections in 3 states on August 23rd. Oh yes, this will be the last day that Nikki Fried will be relevant. That's right. I wonder if she's going to still keep popping up on our timelines everywhere. I know, again, today is going to be the last day she's relevant. Annette Tadeo, thank you so much for your support. Hashtag Election Day. Send us your I voted selfies. Happy to have cast the first ballot in my precinct for Charlie Chris for governor. Get out and vote. Hashtag Election Day. Should I call him a sexist for not voting for Fried? Madison Horn. Today is the day. Remember, if you vote in the primaries, your vote still needs to be heard in the runoff happening today. So that is in Oklahoma. If anyone has friends in Florida, tell them to get out and vote today. We've all had enough of Ron DeSantis. It's a primary, dude. Relax. Just hours before Election Day, NYC candidates in 2 of the most tightly contested congressional races of the election cycle pounded the pavement one last time in a final push to get out the vote. So I guess my question is which 3 states? Let's find out. New York, Florida, and Oklahoma are the primaries today. So Fanning, do your thing. Iyama, if you're here, do your thing. Midget B, do your thing and say very, very big racial undertone things while you're doing so. Talk about the fact that somebody with a small hat made you do it. Alright, and the last one, SNKRS app. Is that the sneakers app? SNKRS app really crashing over some dunks. Shoe game is effed up. Like this tweet, if you took an L on the, I'm guessing this is sneakers app. I didn't even know there was such an app. Quality issues on someone's Stussy X Nike Air Max 2013 Fossil, and they won from Nike Sneakers app. I never forget forgive sneaker resellers for what they did to the Sneakers app. Sneakers app won't let me join the draw. Well, apparently, there's something going on with an app all about shoes that I didn't even know existed until right now. That's interesting. But I really don't wear sneakers unless I'm at the gym either. I wear boots almost... I would say 90% of the time, if I'm out in public, I'm wearing boots of some sort. I prefer them. More ankle support, more comfort for me, and the ability to go from recreation to work at a moment's notice. But hey, if you want sneakers, there's the Sneakers app, I guess, even though it's having problems. All right, that's it. We're done. We're out of here. Yeah, this will be fantastic after Nikki Fried gets curb stomped, because she is double-digit points behind Charlie Crist in almost every poll except for one where she's ahead by 4 points. She is double-digit points behind Charlie Crist, who has no chance against DeSantis, by the way. And again, if she falls off of political relevance, does this mean that we'll be freed from having her on our timeline? Because she's one of those, the safe accounts. We have to have the safe accounts, and if you see enough safe accounts, you might vote socialist. I don't know. It's 9:35 though. We gotta head out of here for the day. I'm just spitballing at this point because I can't really stand anybody on that ballot. All right, so with that, we are out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by, chatted with us, kept us up on point. We had 12 at one point here that I saw over on the side of the screen. So thank you guys for coming in and joining here. The lurkers that are here too, because I didn't see 12 people chatting, but I saw 12 as the number off here. Remember, if you do want to get mentioned at the end, and it's safe to do so because I know that we're doing morning commuters now as well, since we decided to clean up the language for that. If it is safe to do so, get one message in and I can say thank you to you at the end of the week in the handy dandy notebook for coming in and chatting. But if you prefer just to go on and drive along with your day, that's all cool too. We will be back here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more of what's going on around the world. Hopefully the world doesn't end in the next 24 hours, even though it does seem like it's getting close. And we will have the election primary results, and I will be talking about Nikki Fried tomorrow morning. Win, lose, or draw, I will be talking about her tomorrow morning because, yes, I will be very happy to not have her on my Twitter feed anymore. And again, this is coming from somebody who has never blocked on Twitter. I know it would be very easy for me to get her off my Twitter feed, but I'm not like that, even though I am blocked by John Cooper now. So, we'll be back here tomorrow. Come back and join us here for that. Hopefully, looking forward to seeing you here next time, and go head out and see the Daily Ignoramus later on today. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.